Okay. Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
So currently, as we speak, Ilhan Omar and the entire Minnesota political class are seeking to do damage control over the whole Somali issue. They're taking to national TV and calling Trump a racist. None of this is all that surprising. But what I find to be genuinely hilarious is that every single time they're actually grilled on the substance of this issue, right? Not just calling Trump names, but specifically, what is with the massive fraud rates? And hey, here's evidence that the local government is totally in on it. These people completely collapse. Whether that's Ilhan Omar or Tim Walz, who of course we recently talked about, government workers in the state of Minnesota are exposing the fact that, hey, he definitely knew this was going on and he actually made it harder to crack down on fraud. Now he's pretending like, oh, we've always been against the criminals. No, that's absolutely not the case. And we'll bring you this here today, okay, because Ilhan apparently last night tried to go on CNN and Jake Tapper, and well, to make a long story short, it didn't go so well when she was actually asked the question, okay, we understand, oh, Trump is saying edgy things, whatever. Why exactly was this allowed to happen? I don't really have an answer, so we'll get into this, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's not only the best way to support our work, it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, okay, so let's kind of bring you this issue in chronological order, right? We'll start off with a name calling where, yes, every Minnesota leader, every politician is saying, that's racist, that's racist. They believe this strategy still works, although I have my doubts and skepticism about that. But okay, here you go.
This vile, racist stream of consciousness from President Old Man Yells at Cloud. You're disgusting. And the people of this country deserve so much better.
So, Eddie, the president also specifically ramped up his attacks against progressive Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is, of course, a Somali American, and she responded on our air earlier today.
Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage.
I would say the president's obsession with me and the Somali community is really unhealthy. It's creepy. And I hope that he gets the help that he needs. It sounds like he's trying to deflect.
So to be clear, this is the first woman of color ever elected to represent her state in Congress, one of only 3 Muslim members of Congress serving right now. She was, I should also point out that in the last election, she was given that office by more than 75%.
Shocking to hear it, although I don't know how shocked you are at this point anymore. But Somali immigrants, in general, you in particular have been the target of his attacks for a long time. What's your response?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he is trying to scapegoat and deflect.
Yeah, well, as I'm sure you've probably been able to notice for years by now, this is basically the liberal response to anything we say, is this very cartoonish, almost theatrical moral outrage where they just look at you like you're crazy and then they act so appalled. They're like, how could you say that? How disgusting and vile of you, right? And the whole idea, I guess, psychologically is just to shut down the conversation by saying, oh, that's so out of bounds. It's not even within the acceptable realm of political thought. How dare you think that? What is wrong with you, right? And perhaps maybe 10 years ago, that strategy would have worked, except the issue now is this is 2025. And noticeably, every single time they do that, okay, we get it, call us all the names you want. When they're actually grilled on the substance of these issues, they, of course, cannot win. So there you just saw like 2-3 minutes of, you're a racist, how dare they say this, woman of color, whatever. But take a listen to now what happens when Jake Tapper asks about the specific issue here at play, right? Massive, widespread, and by the way, highly disproportionate rates of both financial and immigration fraud happening in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, coming from a certain community of people. And it turns out when you don't just have name calling on your side, she kind of collapses completely, stumbles completely over the answer. So take a listen, and I find that to be very telling, of course.
First of all, federal prosecutors say 59 people have been investigated in these schemes so far. Americans at large stole tens of billions of forms of aid during the pandemic all over the country. Minnesota's fraud scandal stands out, according to federal auditors. What are you hearing from investigators right now?
Well, I've been following the cases closely as they've gone through the courts, and we know that there are more indictments possibly coming. I think that number might go up to 73 is what I'm hearing.
Okay. Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
Now, obviously, whatever the ethnic group, the actions of a few dozen should not impugn an entire community of thousands of people.
Yeah, okay, wait, hold on a minute. See, that excuse doesn't really work. She, of course, tries to argue that, the COVID systems were set up pretty rapidly, and so there was always going to be some room for fraud. It has nothing to do with the people who were committing or abetting the fraud. It's just, that's what happens, that's how it goes. Except that's not how it went in the other 49 states in this country. Did you catch the very fact that federal auditors and prosecutors are noting this is a disproportionate problem happening specifically in your state, specifically in Minnesota, and specifically coming from a certain group of people, right? So it's almost like either one of two things are true, or frankly, I would argue both things are true. Either number one, the community that Donald Trump is currently targeting for no reason, it's just purely racism. Actually, maybe there genuinely is a disproportionately high rate and culture, by the way, of frauding the government, frauding the taxpayers. But secondly, as we've tried to make the case over and over again, seems pretty clear to me, right, that the local government has to be in on it. I know I keep repeating myself on this, but I'm just say one more time. The perfect analogy here would be, say, the Italian mafia, right? Anytime where there's this high, widespread kind of money laundering fraud thing going on, you could argue almost organized crime, and the local government's turning a blind eye to it. It's very rare that the local government's not also in on the same exact scheme. And that's something, of course, that we pointed out about Omar Fateh, right? It's so widespread, even the local politicians are doing much of the same stuff, right? He basically had this housing stabilization project that he voted and introduced the bill to fund while he was in the state legislature. Guess who was owning that, by the way? His wife. Or this character right here. So this is a Minneapolis city council member, obviously of Somali descent. Just yesterday, he went on CNN to compare the entire situation to, in his own words, right, 1930s, 1940s Germany. So here you go again with the name calling, blah, blah, blah. It's racist, this and that. But when you delve a little deeper into this guy, you almost wonder, why exactly is he saying that? Well, that is because in a similar situation to Omar Fateh, right? Are you noticing a pattern here where it's like the same story over and over again? Again, that's why we say it's not just a couple dozen people or, targeting some small group and then punishing a wider group because of it. This is the same exact guy whose wife's nonprofit, guys, had to be shut down in civil court for being a fraudulent shell company. Oh, I've seen this story a million times in Minnesota before, haven't I? And a dormant nonprofit that they founded together was signed over to two individuals who immediately went on to commit $13 million in food fraud. And oh, by the way, at the time when this all happened, he also argued that the crackdown on the fraud in that situation was also racist. So you're noticing a pattern there too, right? They scream racism when, of course, you're enforcing the law or cracking down on fraud. Yeah, all right, take a listen.
Growth in this state, they have contributed a lot to the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis. And yes, folks have done, horrible things, and people have committed crimes, but we should not be pointing the entire community in one brush and being singled out as fellow Americans. There's a justice, there's a process of due process, and I believe those folks have been dealt with by the state leaders, And but now President Donald Trump singling out and attacking one group of people, and ICE being on our streets and asking people documentation. It feels like we are in 1930s, 1940s in Germany. I never thought there would be a time where I will tell my community to carry their passport around because you look like Somali. You might be stopped by ICE. And yes, folks have done horrible things, and people have committed crimes, but we should not be pointing the entire community in one brush.
I heard that MDE took this step to really stop feeding the kids in the middle of pandemic. My office had to do something.
In the video, Osman tells the room how he arranged a call with the MDE commissioner about their attempts to stop new meal sites.
But I'm one of those people that push back and call it what it is, which is racist tactics. I told her this money is actually from the federal. Your job is to distribute fairly to the communities that deserve.
At the time he delivered this speech, Osman's wife, Ilhan Omar, was in the middle of claiming to run a meal site of her own in this small office in downtown Minneapolis that the Minnesota Attorney General in this civil complaint calls a fraudulent shell company. Public records show Amba's nonprofit Urban Advantage Services received $460,000 in reimbursements between February and November 2021. The AG shut it down, citing participation in the meal fraud scheme. What's more, testimony and evidence in Bach's ongoing trial has shown Osman and Amba signed over control of a different, dormant nonprofit they founded together called Stigma Free. Osman writing to its new board, quote, "I have seen growth during the time that I've served, and I'm confident you will continue to grow this amazing organization in my absence."
Oh, hey, wait a minute. I've seen that one before, haven't I? Yeah, pretty sure actually I've seen the exact same story repeat itself. Because here's the thing, it's very difficult for these local politicians to sit here and pretend like it's just some small issue, a couple normal criminals you get all the time, when repeatedly, time after time, we keep finding out different local politicians are engaged in the same exact thing, and it's almost the same story every time, right? You set up some type of fraudulent nonprofit that you claim is feeding children or COVID relief or education, whatever it is, and then, don't do anything with it. Don't disclose the fact that it's tied directly to your family while you're in the state legislature or the city council. Fund it, and then prosecutors and investigators have to come and realize, wait a minute, you're committing blatant and total fraud, right? And it really is a low-down, disgusting thing to think about as well, because I'd have to imagine perhaps the reason why historically this was not that closely investigated, especially in the state of Minnesota. I'd say maybe America as a whole, but especially in Minnesota, is probably for a long time, there was just this culture of trust around it, right? Surely someone wouldn't set up a freaking fraudulent charity to just steal money from the taxpayer. I mean, no, feeding children is good. And then what happens, of course? We're dealing with people who don't operate under the same standards of cultural trust or honor or whatever, and then they get into office, and then they, of course, just steal money from the government. And then same thing, right? Notice even years ago, he's still saying it's racist when you crack down on the fraud, right? Because that's just their culture, apparently. According to this very city council member, that's just Somali culture, apparently, according to him, right? I'm not saying that. He's saying that. It's just to, steal and fraud stuff from the government and all that. And then, Trump turns around and says, okay, clearly, again, this is a widespread cultural systemic issue. The politicians on it. I'm sure basically all the people in these neighborhoods know exactly what's going on. Maybe we should crack down on it and address that. No, it's racist. It's just a few of us. Oh, really? If it's just a few of us, then I'm going to guess that few includes all the local politicians? Yeah, I don't know. But that said, we also have, of course, the meltdown of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey last night and Trump's response to it as well. So take a listen.
He's wrong, and we want them here. Somali people have been an extraordinary benefit. I'll say it again. Somali people have been a benefit to our city for longer than I have been in our city. They have started businesses and created jobs. They have added to the cultural fabric of what Minneapolis is. They were welcoming to me when I first came out to Minneapolis. In fact, they were one of the first groups that I myself got to know. To, again, villainize an entire group is ridiculous under any circumstances. And the way that Donald Trump is consistently doing it, I think calls into question major constitutional violations. And it certainly violates the moral fabric of what we stand by in this country as Americans.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also saying.
I wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent. Waltz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain.
Yeah, well, again, I'm going to say it's very hard for Democrats to actually argue about this issue on the substance of it. Because the substance says that, first of all, Trump's not wrong when he says Somalia is a completely failed nation. And frankly, when you look through history, has always been as such, right? It's very difficult to say that widespread fraud is not happening when we have evidence that widespread fraud is happening. Local politicians are in on it. And by the way, that's just a financial fraud that we know about. This is not counting the fact that DHS has found that, for instance, close to, say, 50% of all of these Somali people living in the Twin Cities had committed some form of immigration fraud, right? And then, of course, it's hard to argue, but they're contributing to the economy. I mean, yeah, I'm sure some of them are. I don't know. But when you say started businesses and then your shining example of a business is these like fraudulent nonprofits, it's like, yeah, legally, maybe that's a business. I wouldn't argue it's contributing a lot. But secondly, of course, as we've talked about time and time again, this issue of tax dependency, okay, among Somali households. The highest in the entire United States, close to 50% of all Somali households are on some form of government welfare, whether that's EBT, SNAP, or Section 8, or welfare, other things, right, Medicaid. And so it's actually the case en masse, on average, that the community is a net tax negative on the United States, not a tax positive. Now, I mean, obviously it's the case. I'm sure there's some Somali people in Minnesota who are, say, not committing fraud and they're actually self-sufficient. They're not on government benefits, whatever. But it is a genuine conversation to be had, first of all. When the rates are happening not at like 1%, but at 50%, and the law of averages here applies, then I don't think it's exactly a crazy idea to say, okay, maybe we should just stop bringing in immigration from Somalia, right? Because the United States has no moral obligation to do so, right? And then obviously, okay, fine. You find one person who's like an upstanding citizen, okay. But when you're bringing in thousands of people, you need to understand you're always going to get like the deviation to the mean, right? And so if it's the case that that country has all those problems, and then you bring a bunch of people here over to this country, it logically stands to equate very likely that, the population's going to look more like the problems they came from than, magically just assimilating or something like that, right? And, even on this front, actually, when you really break down what Trump is doing right now, he never said even necessarily deport every single person who's Somali. What he specifically said, first of all, is we're terminating the TPS, right? Temporary protected status. That was always meant to be temporary. You absolutely can't do it because it's just an executive action, right? There's nothing to do with Congress. The president can decide to give someone like a temporary amnesty or not. He's just revoking that. Okay. But secondly, what was the argument even in his Truth Social that sent the world wild? He was basically saying, okay, we're going to be reviewing legal immigrant visas and cracking down on if there's cases of fraud, if there's national security concerns, and especially, too, this is another important one because we should not be importing our own bankruptcy, right? Are you a tax negative? Are you sucking money out of the system, right? Because that's not something necessarily I think it's smart to bring into this country. If you claim, of course, that, we need it for the economy, but we're actually damaging our own economy in the process. And so it's like, okay, so Jacob Frey, if these are the actions being taken by the Trump administration, and you claim that actually, widespread on average, the community is really good, they're economic positives, they're not committing fraud, then how exactly can you simultaneously turn around and say that he's targeting the entire community with these actions, or even a wide swath of it, right? See how that's contradictory? If the problem's not widespread, then what are you so afraid of? It's almost like they all know how widespread it is, right? It's almost like, for instance, the other day we're talking about the Minneapolis police chief. And when he's cracking down on fraud, he's apologizing to the community because he's saying, oh, I understand it might cause some damage or harm or hurt to the Somali community. It's like, wait, I thought it's just a small group of people, right? Shouldn't the rest of the community be happy that you're cracking down on the fraudsters or criminals? Oh, wait a minute, maybe it is a widespread issue. See exactly what we're saying. But anyways, guys, there you essentially have it. And there again answers the question as to why they just keep resorting to calling people racist, because on the when you actually break down this issue by the details, there's very little here to defend, because everything we're saying, everything we're describing is actually true. But there you have it. All right, that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.